USA 2025 Gravel Nationals is about to kick off here at the end of September in La Crescent, Minnesota, Saturday, September 20th. And I just watched a video kind of breaking down the course, talking to some of the locals, which was pretty cool, and wanted to kind of dive into the profile more and the course a bit more. They gave a good feel for the area. I guess the Apple Fest is happening at the same time. So it should be a cool weekend there in, La Crescent, Minnesota. So it should be awesome. Sounded like most people will stay across the river of the Mississippi. But let's break down this route here together. What I have at the bottom of the screen here, I have elevation, the surfaces, so anywhere you see the dark red down at the bottom here versus the dashed red and white bars. Dark red, solid, is going to be paved. Dashed is going to be gravel. So that's the surfaces. The gradient is this middle, looks like an earthquake seismograph. That is gradient over here on the right. The very top, it's saying 15%. Very bottom here would be a 15% downhill. And the little dash line through the middle is a gradient of 0. So it kind of gives you a feel for that. And then obviously you can see the profile. So if we look at this, essentially, and listening to the video of the folks that were talking, they said there's no like extensive long climbs. However, they likened it to death by 1,000 cuts. Another guy mentioned super steep climbing. So he verbatim said, if you are a flatlander, you are likely going to want that granny gear. You may want a double. I've currently got a guy who's going to go race it that I coach. He's doing single speed. This is going to be a pretty challenging single speed course. The person they were interviewing that's a local mentioned that, from a tire selection standpoint, the loose, there may be some loose gravel. And if so, really tough to climb while standing when they are, he said, 20% gradients. So nothing here. If we look over here on the top left, it says the steepest is 11.6. However, I never trust the gradient on Ride with GPS, nor any other, Strava, any of these other route creators. I never really trust the actual percentage of the gradient. So I'm going to take the local, and it may have been embellished a little bit, but I would be planning on there being some 15% sections, and he characterized it as a lot of short, steep climbs. They mentioned a lot of them are about a 500 or so foot elevation gain when you're actually climbing those. So just to give you a feel for the course. And you can tell there's one, if we scroll down over here, you can see the different climbs. So 2.1 miles at a 4% average, but that includes a little up and then a downhill into the overall gradient. So it's actually going to be a steeper average. The next climb, 1.2 miles at 6.3%. The next one, 1.9 miles at 412. Then we got 412 feet total, 4.2%. Then we got 1.2 at 5.6%. 0.8, that's one of the steeper ones at 6.5. 1.9 miles at 3.9%, 1.9 at 3.5%, so pretty similar, although that includes kind of a flatter section in it. 0.9, so that's like a net uphill into a 0.9. So that one's going to be wearing on you, and then you are going to get hit by that final kick. And then near the end is a couple tough ones, it looks like. So 2.2 miles at 5%. 528 total feet of gain. It's probably actually more than that. And then 1.3 miles at 7.5%. This shows peak gradient being there. That's going to be a doozy. That will be a doozy for sure. But I think this whole course is going to be a challenging course. None of these uphills. So one thing I always like to look for is after the uphill, is it followed by an immediate downhill? And if it is, you can get away with riding your own tempo a bit more, even if you get dropped a little bit near towards the top. If you're a good descender, then you can usually jump back on. But the problem with these climbs are going to be you get to the top and it's still a bit of this kind of rolly terrain, and it's flatter and rolling. So like this very first one, if you were to try to pace yourself and not stay with the group that you're with, and you end up by yourself at the top, you have 4.2 miles. That is a lot of time to lose a lot of time. So all of these climbs appear as though you are going to need to kind of dig in. If you're planning on having a great overall result, you're going to need to dig in and be with the group, because it's going to benefit you to be in a draft on these flatter sections, and you aren't going to have the ability to chase back on right away. So you're going to get stuck having to do a ton of work if you are not with a group at the top. I think that's sort of one of the biggest things that I'm seeing here is you're going to have to be able to climb pretty well. And 2 mile climbs, 1.2 mile climbs, I mean, you're probably looking at 6, 8, 10-ish minute climbs. I haven't gone and looked at Strava yet, but those are deep, like VO2 max style duration. These are going to be, depending on how great of a climber you are, these are going to be some tough efforts. So if you're training for this, here's what I would recommend. We still have, I think it's 43 days or so. You are going to want to start getting in some hard 5-minute and 8-minute efforts. That's going to be what I'm going to plan for my athlete who's doing this. His is going to be a little different because he's single speed. And going into gear selection, if you're preparing to be able to climb at 15% gradient while also trying to go fast on these flatter sections, it's going to be a tough one. Much better is when you have, for single speed folks, is if it's constantly up and down, and you don't have longer in between sections, because then you gear a little more like, okay, I'm going to coast the downhills, and I'm going to ride something that I can go fast uphill on. But this will be a little bit of a different story. It does look like there's decent chunks of paved sections as well. When they talked about tire selection, one of the guys was on a 55 setup, 55 mil setup, or C, whatever you want to call it. But he said he also did a ride last summer, I think he said, that was across all of Minnesota, lots of different gravel terrain. And he said he did that on a 35 width tire. He's like, you're going to be able to ride a lot more. You're going to get bounced around quite a bit on the 35s versus like a 55. But I did hear him say he thinks the winner will come from something that is a little more narrow and a little bit faster rolling. And that likely could be just because of the amount of paved in between. And he said that the conditions should be pretty solid that time of year. They're laying thicker gravel right now, or have been throughout the summer. But by the end of September, he thinks that the gravel should be pretty darn fast. So hopefully this helps. If you got questions, input, if you're racing, we'd love to hear about it. And I think that's all I got on this one. If I miss anything, let me know. If you're from that area and you happen to be watching this, please drop any of your input in the comments. We'd love to hear it. And that's all I got. As always, trust your training.